Hello, everyone. This is the East Coast Economic Update for July the 11th, 2018. Today, I want to kind of cover some issues about economic, where we're reaching right now economically. We know that economics affects our political position, and our political position is affected by our economics. Now, we've been talking about this for about a year or so in regard to the automation situation. We have two opposing situations that we're looking at right now. We have a place where our economic engines are run automatically and automatedly. That means that folks that are low skilled, in the sense that they work on an assembly line, even medium skilled or somewhat educated, who work in an office, seem to have sorry about that, guys, seem to have more or less economic power in regard to incomes. Now, if we look at shadowstats.com, there has been a decline or increase of unemployment. We're looking at the FDR numbers. We see that around 1996, 97, 98, there was a drop because there was an increase in the number of people working at computer and service jobs and an increase in the income levels. That came to a screeching halt around 2003, 2004. And then we've had a constant increase of unemployment or underemployment. Even the business I do, where I do a lot of consulting work and research, I hire researchers. A few of you had commented, I don't know who these people in their gig economies, they must be teenagers. This is not the case. I have highly educated, multi-degreed, computer-savvy folks that can't get steady work where they are, to the point where we're getting people from other states and other areas with, in some cases, 10, 15, 20, 30 years of experience working for me part-time while working for other people and other gig deals, whether it's editing or research or what have you. And this is a prevalent situation. And the reason why it's a hidden prevalent situation is because when you're not working for someone and you're working for yourself, or you're working as a independent consultant in some cases, you're not counted on the rolls on unemployment. These people are not my employees. I hire them as a consultant. I pay them hopefully a reasonable wage, but even then we're dealing with 10, 15 hours in some cases every 2 weeks or every month. So someone who works for me is working for somebody else. And because those people don't work for a corporate structure where unemployment is laid out, they become invisible. They many times are underpaid. Sometimes they don't get enough work from one or a multitude of different jobs. And this is what we talk about when we're talking about middle to highly skilled workers. More and more corporations are looking to save money and, of course, lay their bottom line by using better software and using folks who are willing to work from home or from a, if you want to see a gig economy in play, go to a Panera Bread or any place with a really good Wi-Fi system, and you will see your gig economy in action because they're trying to save money by using free Wi-Fi. And a lot of people are doing that. What is also happening at the same time is a quintessential shift from on the right and on the left in regard to extremism. And when I say extremism, I'm not saying terrorists. What I am saying is extreme ideas coming to their fruition. And they're both being raised up politically from the same location, from the average person, supporting those people from their preconceived ideologies. And I will give you examples. So you have all these centrists, Republicans, Democrats, whatever. You have all these centrists, and they're not beholden, or they have ignored their constituents. They give their constituents lip service, But for the most part, their concern and their only concern is their donors. And if those donors are out-of-state corporations giving them tens or not hundreds of thousands of dollars to do what they want them to do, guess what? The average congressman, the average senator is beholden to the constituent that's writing them the biggest check, not the people who vote for them in office. This is a reason why we have in the Bronx and Queens this overturned explosion between Jim Crowley, who had been part of the Democratic machine, being knocked out by an unknown Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. The reason is very simple. She went to the people, said, please vote for me and please support me. And those people who sent $25, $15 amounts not only paid her for her work, for her movement, but also committed to voting for her. And this is something that's critical. It has slapped the Democrats across the mouth in a way that they have never experienced, because now they're like, whoops, it's not about the money anymore. I actually have to talk to these yokels that I'm part of in this district. I actually have to listen to their whining and complaining. Yes. And on the other end of that spectrum, which kind of happened about 10, 15 years earlier, the Tea Party, now the Alt-Right, or whatever the iteration happened afterwards, did the same thing. The only difference is that the Republicans fell into line for the most part, but that extremism is going back to the rural areas. So you have inner city folks going to the left, supporting financially, and these new candidates coming about, promising to support the constituency and protect the constituency and answer to the constituency instead of to a large donor or corporation or Koch brothers or whatever. And that's the issue. And what is going to occur here is, the reason for this is quite simple. You have everybody who's happy, fat and happy for a short period of time. After the 2007 collapse, when it became incredibly clear that the people were screwed, both Democrats and Republicans turned to the banks and toward the large corporations and said, how can I help you? And left the constituents basically sitting in a pile of their own dung. And what comes out of that is extreme right and extreme left. Why? Because when the extreme left doesn't go to the flyover states where Ms. Clinton used deplorables and thought that they were unimportant. Why? Because she's a corporatist, like most politicians from that era between the 70s till recently. And the problem was that the advantage of the alt-right went down to those flyover countries that were flyover states and towns and counties and said, we're here for you. And then their ideology became the mainstream ideology of those supporters. On the other end of the spectrum, where it was a little slow to move, we get a Bernie Sanders, for example, saying, we want to support people who want to get money out of Wall Street, yada, 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 yada. And what comes about is a response. And when the Democrats fail in 2016, both in the presidency and in the Senate and the Congress, for the same reason, the Democrats don't learn their lesson that their constituents are unhappy. Well, this is what's happened. And what's going to expedite and what is going to make this even more intense is that in the this fall, all those buybacks, all those tax incentives that were given to corporations, and they bought back their stock to elevate the Dow Jones and the other things, that's going to wear itself out. And what's going to happen is going to be a market drop in the stock market. They're going to blame it on tariffs, and I would say, short of putting a tinfoil hat on my head, that the whole tariff war is a misdirection for the basic understanding of what's going on economically speaking. You have an entire generation and a half of people who are living paycheck to paycheck or even below that. They can't even rent an apartment, not to mention live. They can't even live in their parents' homes. They just can't economically handle it. You have all these people that are underemployed, part-time employed, or just invisible to the U6 and U3 numbers. And you have a whole mess of people that were planning on retiring 10 years ago, and they lost their entire 401k at the point of their retirement. And the reason for that is because the majority of baby boomers were retiring at that time. There is a direct correlation between financial collapses and when people are pulling their money out of these 401ks and money markets and all this other stuff to retire. You take money out of something, it loses value. So it compounded on top of all the mishigas that was going on with the CDOs and everything else. Now, what's going to happen is once the stock market starts to drop, and the reality of, especially in November, the reality of the constituents rioting against Congress, not necessarily against corporations, but it's going to come to that. We're going to find ourselves at a quintessential point where we're going to have extreme right and extreme left individuals running the Congress. The similarities of those two individuals is that they are going to answer to the constituents. They're going to respond with their ideologies, whether it's left or right. And what we're going to end up with is basically a battle of wits. Now, what's going to happen after that? That's the part I'm not sure about. But understand that the mechanisms here are very clear. Jobs are not going to come back. We're going to change the way we see things. Corporatism and financial security for a middle class person is non-existent. We're going to have to rethink our understanding of the mechanism of economics. And just so everybody knows, the difference between democratic socialism and nationalist socialism is that the socialism either goes to the richest people in national socialism, or in democratic socialism it goes to the egalitarian, to the masses. And what's going to happen is, unfortunately, a culture war and a economic war for the hearts and minds of the individuals who are hurting and who have been continued to hurt. Don't forget, the people on the far right, the people on the far left are in the same circumstances. How they respond to it is based on the ideologies who have returned to them and said, we're here for you. And that is the only difference why you have an alt-right and a democratic socialist rise. The only problem is that will the Congress, will the establishment respond to this in time, or are they going to be crushed? My opinion is that they're going to be crushed on both the right and the left. So, until next time, peace.